Hello, it's Charles Fockaert, December 21st, 2017. I welcome all of you. Thank you for watching and thank you for supporting this channel. I would ask you to share these videos as much as you can. I don't post on Twitter. I got out of Facebook a long time ago. I just don't have time to spend over there. And Facebook is very destructive. Even the executives of Facebook are coming out and saying how the social media is harmful to society. So if you're on those other medias and you appreciate what you learn here, what you hear here, I would appreciate it if you would share to get the word out. This is the first day of winter, the winter solstice, and boy, did it come in like a lion last night. I got back from town at about 12:30 afternoon, and the wind started blowing, and it was a cold wind, and it blew all day yesterday. It blew all night, and I got up this morning, and it was cold. It's a cold wind, and I got up this morning, and there's snow on the mountains here, or the high hills, you call them mountains, and it's cold outside right now. So I'm in winter and I can feel it, but it's not as bad, it's not as cold as it would be up there in Kalispell, so I'm not complaining. But and I got heater works, everything's fine. And that isn't what this video is about, but I just wanted to let you know, boy, when you're in an older trailer, older RV like this one, there's the insulation's not very good. That wind just blows right through here, so it's a little nippy. This video is about two things. I'm going to bring you to 1 Corinthians chapter 2, and I'm only going to touch on that a little bit. And then I want to go, the main subject of this video is a follow-up on the Barry Sherman, put the parentheses, triple parentheses around the Sherman, the addictions that the Esau Edomites love to be involved in, because then they make you slaves. I'm not going to go into the interest, but that is one of the slavery. That is one way they get us to be slaves to them. Scripture says the borrower is the servant to the lender. But I've got 5 other aspects, 5 other addictive endeavors that the Esau Edomites are heavily involved in, which may be one of the reasons they get kicked out. They've been kicked out of over 109 countries throughout history. And don't you think it's about time they got kicked out of the United States and Europe? Let them all go to Israel and let them all live there. But let's get on. First, I'm just going to touch on 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Let's go have a look at that, shall we? Okay, E-sword, 1 Corinthians 2:1, and I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God, for I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ, or Yeshua, and him crucified. And I was with you in meekness and in fear and in much trembling. And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. And I want to concentrate a little bit on this verse here, 1 Corinthians 2:6. Howbeit we speak wisdom among them that are perfect. And I'm going to look into this word here just a little bit, and I'll get into it later in a video to follow this one. I'm working on it, and I just want to share with you why so few people get it. You know, there was a fella that used to walk by when I was picking weeds at the triple check income tax place on the corner. It was a triangle lot, and I was out there in the hot sun in Southern California picking weeds, and this guy used to walk by, and he went over to the restaurant that I could see right down the road, and I didn't like being out there picking weeds, and I was ready to move up to a better job. So I went down there one day, and because he saw me picking weeds there all the time, he walked by on his way to work, and I was out there working, and we got to know each other a little bit by appearance, or by what do you call it? You know, recognize each other. So I went down there one day, and I said, I'd like to work here. Can I want to apply for a job. And he says, how old are you? And I said, I'm 15. Well, that's because he had said one day, you seem to be a pretty hard worker. And so I went down there looking for a job, and like I said, I went in there and said, can I get a job here? And he said, how old are you? And I said, 15. He says, come back when you're 16. I can't hire you until you're 16. So on my birthday, December 7, I went down there and I got hired. That correlates to this Greek word right here, G5046, and complete, growth, mature. I was too young, I was too immature to work for this man at the restaurant. And by the way, I became an assistant manager while I was 17, before I was 17 years old, and I think I was only 16 years old when I became an assistant manager at this at the Sizzling Platter. So within 6 to 8 months, I moved up from a busboy to assistant manager. Anyway, I only bring that up because a lot of people come here and they're immature. They're not full-grown men. And the topics and the way that I approach the teaching and the explanation on this channel is really only fit, or only going to be understood by those that are full-grown men. And let me go to Joseph Thayer's, and let's look at what he says the meaning of this word here, perfect, means. And the Strong says complete. And it's translated in the Greek as a full age, a man, or perfection. In other words, he's grown up. Let's go have a look at Joseph Thayer. Okay, I'm reading out of Joseph Thayer, G5046, and he says, brought to its end, finished, wanting nothing necessary to completeness. And then further on, he says, of men, full grown, adult, of full age, mature. And later on, he says, the more intelligent, ready to apprehend divine things. So it's the idea of being full grown. And a lot of people come on here, they watch one video. That's like coming into a professor's college class. I am in my mid-60s. I've been around the block a couple of times. I may not be the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but I've been around the block a couple of times backwards. I've lived in 4 different third world countries. I've traveled in over 25 other countries. I've been reading and studying the scriptures since I was 23 years old. That's over 40 years. And some of you people come on here and you're not even 16 yet, and you think you know it all. So I'm suggesting that you come back, or at least you watch more than one video here before you make a comment and show us your ignorance, because you don't have a clue. You're not a full-grown adult. You're trying to sit at the adult table, and you don't know what you're talking about. Enough of that. Let's move on to the main topic of this video, which is the the Esau Edomites' involvement in addictive industries. Now, I want to state straight off that if the Esau Edomite bankruptcy judge back in 1999 hadn't illegally confiscated everything that I had worked hard for over 20 years, closer to about 25 years at that time, if he hadn't taken everything away from me, I would be able to do the fancy programming and software like Kapner, and then that would be impressive to you people, and I wouldn't possibly be living in a 40-year-old RV. I'd be living in a condo on Priest River like that Sephardic Esau Edomite. And I had somebody tell me that the Sephardic Jews are not the problem. Oh, yes, they are. They're just as much of a problem as the other Jews. They're Marrano Jews. They pretend to be what you would think of as Gentile. That's what Kapner's done. He's a Sephardic Jew who wants you to think that he now believes in Jewish as the Messiah. He can't. He's an Esau Edomite Jew. The gospel, the redemption, the plan of redemption by the kinsman redeemer is just that. It's for the kinsmen, and he and his fellow Esau Edomites are not kinsmen. But you are not mature enough. You're spiritually a baby, and you don't get that. But let's move on. Last video on Barry Sherman and David Sassoon, we did a little bit of history on how the Esau Edomites have been involved in opiates and drugs, pharmakia, for several hundred years. So I'm not going to go into that. I suggest you go watch the previous video on Barry Sherman. I'm going to insert this here as an edit, and other than to say, I just want to add one thing. A commenter, the name of Stranger I Am, said that he was a retired pharmacist, and when people asked him what he did for a living, he said he sold side effects. And I remember when I came back to the United States from being overseas for almost 13 years, I went and stayed with my brother. And my brother had a habit of, when he came home from work early in the afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock, he would get on the recliner and take a nap. And he would always turn on the plug-in drug, the Talmud Vision. And I watched him because he would lay back in the recliner there with the remote control in his hand, and he got into the alpha state. The alpha state is just below being conscious, and that's when the programming and the Talmud Vision is called programming, folks. It's television programming. And I want to tell you, they use subliminals. Subliminals is defined as below the threshold of consciousness, below the threshold of apprehension, specifically involving or using stimuli that become effective subconsciously by repetition. They repeat their subliminal message to your subconscious, your subconscious, when you're in the alpha state, and that's how they hook you on watching Talmud Vision, and that's when they send their programming and they brainwash you. We used to call, in my family, we used to call television the plug-in drug, the idiot box, the boob tube, and nothing's changed since then. And this was in the afternoon, so there was a lot of drug-related commercials there. And I remember the first 15 seconds were telling you what the drug that you needed was for to solve your ailment. And then the next 45 minutes went into the side effects. These people, folks, are selling drugs that are not making the problem better. They're making you get sicker. And I want to thank you for your comment, Stranger I Am. Thank you. But there's 5 addictions that these Esau Edomites are involved in. 1 is drugs, 2 is gambling, 3 is tobacco, 4 is pornography, and 5 is the aspartame type drugs, because that's what it is. I want to talk about the gambling. We got lottery tickets. You visit casinos. If you're addicted to gambling, you can't help but buy these lottery tickets, which is just a theft from low-income, less intelligent people. You can't help but visit casinos. You play the slot machines. You love to bet, and that's why sports is such a big deal in the United States, because people bet on these games. And I'm not just talking about the little graph and you pick a square and, you know, I'm not talking about that. Some of these people bet on these games big time, and they're fixed. Who was it in that movie, The Godfather? Philip Roth down there in Miami said, I got interested in baseball when his fellow Esau Edomites fixed the World Series. When was it? Chicago, 1909. I don't know the details. If I had internet hookup,
I enjoy watching football in the afternoon. One of the things I love about this country. Baseball, too. I loved baseball ever since Arnold Rothstein fixed the World Series in 1919.
There was 2 other judges in Montana. Judge Newman put the triple parentheses around him, and Judge Kruger, triple parentheses around him, that illegally ruled against me by not obeying what the law says, and that interfered with my life for 3.5 years. And you people wonder why these Esau Edomites are so wealthy. The law doesn't apply to them. It only applies to you and me when we fail to put the money in the parking meter, or we speed too fast on the highway, or whatever. The law doesn't apply to them. They're getting away with murder, but I digress. So number 2 is gambling. Las Vegas, for example, just one example, Las Vegas was started by Esau Edomites, Bugsy Siegel, and the rest of them. I forget all their names. Folks, Las Vegas is about an hour away from here, and I hear people in town talking all the time how they went to Las Vegas this weekend and they wasted their money. They never tell you about how much money they lose. They only tell you the few times when they win. In regards to gambling, a part of your brain called the insula reacts to gambling in the same way an alcoholic's brain responds to a drink. The more you feed your habit, the worse it becomes. And you know what? Just reading this, alcohol is very addictive. And that's not even on my list here. But alcohol companies, come on, folks, controlled by Esau Edomites for the most part. So that's the gambling. And by the way, Trump, and you can put the triple parentheses around Trump, I think, and I've got other videos about, I believe he's a Jew, because you shall know them by their fruit. What was he involved in? He's involved in Atlantic City gambling. He's a Jew, folks. That's part of the evidence right there. Number 3 is tobacco. Tobacco, addictive. Nicotine is one of the most addictive substances there is, and I want to read something to you that I looked up on my phone, and I'm going to read it to you. Hold on, let me get it. Right here, I'm going to show you. The Philip Morris companies have been known as Altria since 2003. Altria profits from tobacco in 2006 were $13,270,000,000. $13 billion in 1 year, folks. 1 year. And the company was started by the Jewish Philip Morris. Folks, tobacco is one of the most addictive compounds or substances in existence, and the Jews love to be involved in addictive companies or companies that sell addictive products. So tobacco is number 3. Let's move on to pornography. Pornography is addictive. The sexual climax pumps a drug into your system, and you get hooked on that, and you need pornography to get that addictive drug injected into your system over and over again. And the first pornography was the Esau Edomites, who stole the motion picture from Thomas Edison, fled to the West Coast, Hollywood, Los Angeles, and they started those where you put the nickel in the machine. I can't remember all the details, folks, and I don't have internet to go check up on some of this stuff here to fill in the details. You can do it. You put, I forget what they were called, the penny or the nickel machines. You put it in, you watch pornography. That's where it got started, folks. They stole the idea, which reminds me of Zuckerberg stealing Facebook from his 2 college buddies, but I digress. And isn't Facebook now and social media addictive? That's another topic. Let's move on to number 5, aspartame. Aspartame is addictive. It's a substance, and I understand Trump, triple parentheses, is addicted to Diet Coke. He drinks an unusual amount of Diet Coke every day. He's got an addiction. And the only people that I ever see drinking Diet Coke or diet drinks like Diet Pepsi are all overweight. You get addicted. Aspartame makes you crave carbohydrates. You then overeat and you get overweight. You wonder why there's an obesity problem in the Western world. Well, look no further than the Esau Edomites' control of drugs like aspartame. And I want to go back to the tobacco industry, and it was a Esau Edomite named Edward Bernays who got Americans and others in the Western world hooked on nicotine, and including my mother. I
don't know. Excuse me. I'll get cigarettes.
Thank you. Who's Bob?
When my mother had me during her pregnancy with me, she wasn't smoking. She only acquired the habit later. And my 2 younger brothers, I believe, were affected by my mother being on nicotine. And I'm not going to go into any more detail, but my youngest brother was very greatly affected by my mother being hooked on tobacco, and I think that was part of the rift between my mother and father having a problems in their marriage because my father didn't drink and he didn't smoke. And my mother was hooked on nicotine by the time my younger brother was born. And folks, these people are causing untold misery, untold expenses, untold problems in the Western world, and we're allowing them to do it. And unless we step up and say enough is enough, they're going to continue to make billions and billions of dollars at the expense, at the misery of the Caucasian race. I want to thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing these videos. And thank you for supporting this channel. And may the grace of God, our Father Yahweh, may His grace be upon us all, for we most certainly need it. See ya.